and gentlemen, welcome back to These Go to 11. Once again, Nathan Bell. Joining me as always, Zach Bartles. Zach, what's going on, man?
I smell like an old man.
Really?
Yeah, I have one of those like icy hot pain patches on my back.
Nice.
Because I tell myself I slept on it badly, but I think I'm just getting older and it hurts because it hurts. Anyway, well, it occurred to me that that's kind of what old men smell like.
It's interesting that you said that because I too smell a little bit like icy hot because I pulled my hamstring last week at a youth group event. And so I've been using Icy Hot to kind of ease into it. Dude, I found our sponsor for this week.
Oh, yeah? Icy Now, I think it's more old guy to go with Ben Gay.
There you go.
Like, Ben Gay in, like, the medicine cabinet is the most old man thing in the world. Like, oh, I'm almost out of Ben Gay. All my aches and pains.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of These Go to 11 brought to you by Ben Gay.
Is that how that works? How do we get our money?
That's a good question. I
also feel like crap today, dude, too, because I've been on this real kick of eating from like Roach Coach, like food trucks.
Yeah.
I had this place had mucho in the title, and I feel mucho malo, man. I'm sure that's not how you say muy mal. That's it.
Muy mal.
But oh my gosh. It was one of those deals where, like, the chips had been, like, deep fried, like, each and every one of them.
Oh, my gosh.
And, like, the third one, you're like, oh, I'm going to regret this.
But I can't stop.
And it's a school day, but, like, a 9-year-old served me at, I don't know, like, 1 in the afternoon. I'm going, why aren't you in school, young man?
It was bring your kid to work day.
Yes. They were very nice. I'm not going to leave, like, a bad Yelp review or anything, but I'm also not going to go back there. Can't handle the street meat as well as I once could.
I know, right? Isn't that the case with almost anything? I can't play a game with tag like the youth group like I once could.
It wasn't snowboarding. It wasn't even one of those trampoline parks. It was just a simple game of tag. Took out Nathan Bell.
It was. We were playing. Are you familiar with link tag?
No.
Okay, so you get in a group of 3 and you link arms. And so the 2 people on the end are fair game to link up with, but whoever you link up with, the person on the opposite side has to run.
Oh, okay.
So, person on the other side got linked and I had to start running and I took 1 step and I felt a pop and I was like, I think I can make it. And I took another step and nope, my legs stiffened up and I hit the ground hard, man.
You're it. And by it, I mean slathered in Ben Gay.
Oh, dude, this kid had absolutely no shame whatsoever. I'm down on the ground. I'm clearly like, I've got, cause we're playing on the cement. I've clearly got like, road rash on my arm and knee. He just comes right up to me and I'm laughing my head off, but I'm clearly injured. He just comes right up to me. He's like, "You're it, Mr. Bell." And he goes running away.
Blessed are the merciful.
Oh, it was such a youth group moment.
If that ever happens to me, I've paid for it in advance, and karma, which I don't believe in, has it coming my way. Because every year when I go and pastor the 7th and 8th grade camp in northern Michigan, we play Capture the Flag. Mm-hmm. And at some point, it's counselors and staff versus campers.
Yep.
And I established myself from the very beginning as a non-combatant. And 2 or 3 years in a row, I had my son pretend to be like hurt, and I'd have my arm around him, he'd be limping, and I'd be walking into the camper's side, and people would look at me, and I'd shoot them a look like, no, I'm not playing around right now, okay? And then as soon as I was close enough, I would just like abandon all the whole ruse and just run for the flag to grab it. That makes me a bad parent, doesn't it?
I'm using my kid for nefarious purposes.
He thought it was fun, too, so I don't know.
Hey. Oh, man, that's great. Oh, dude. All right, so let's
talk about some upbeat stuff that isn't super depressing and won't make anyone block me on Facebook.
That's right. Let's do it. So we're not even going to mention the other thing. Dude, actually, you came up with a really great topic in light of us opening up a discussion group on Facebook.
That's the sponsor, too.
That's
Brought
right.
to you by Ben Gay and the discussion group on These Go to 11 Facebook page.
And can I say, that picture of Dutcher is amazing.
Like I told you, man, I was so embarrassed that it took like half an hour because the reason it's funny is it looks like it took like 90 seconds.
I sent that to him, and he was like, "This is amazing." He's almost tempted to get back on Facebook just for that.
Stay away. It's a dumpster fire. Run in the other direction, Reverend Dutcher.
Don't come back. Oh, man. Well, one thing I do want to say is I am in talks with one Reverend Dutcher about seeing if we can get one Reverend James King to make some guest appearances in vis-a-vis getting some topics to him and doing some recordings and getting those into our listeners' hands. So I am in negotiations with that. He brought in a pretty big salary when he left, so we have to do a little bit of negotiating here. But I think I'm wearing him down. So
I want to bring up the actual post. Whose idea was this? There's a lot to go through. Honestly, I think there's like 50 people on here, but it's a lot of action, and so it feels like not a dead group. Like a dead group on Facebook's a sad thing.
Oh,
it feels
yeah.
like a thriving group here. Someone asked, how did you first hear about the podcast? And people were sharing like their testimony.
Yes.
People are sharing different articles to discuss, which is super cool, ideas for episodes. And at some point, someone said, hold on, let me just do a search for James King. Here it is. Aaron Phillips. The good Reverend James King needs a 5-minute podcast of, quote, edifying material. It would be the highlight of my week. I resent that. I think we should be the highlight of your week.
I know, right?
Brian Roden responded instead of, now this is all in a closed Facebook group, so I'm actually basically betraying people's confidence. Instead of the briefing, it could be the strafing. And he just shoots off at everyone. To which I said this. As the next time Greg is on, we need to drop this idea in his lap. I can see it embedded in our RSS feed, but branded as its own podcast, sort of like Happy Rant. Happy Rant.
Yes.
And you said, we'll see what you can arrange. And if you can arrange that, I think you'll have some happy listeners.
Yes.
Just like random rants, no context. Just James King going off doing James King, and then that's the end of the episode. It's so funny.
That's it. Just 5 or 10 minutes of the Reverend Jimmy King doing his thing.
My favorite ones of those are the ones during the election when he talks about children going out and spreading the word about God's chosen disciple, Donald Jonathan Trump. So funny. We've
got to definitely have to get him to do some things. So I am in negotiations, and we'll see what happens. So,
did we ever tell the listeners that the last time he recorded a James King thing, that you and I got together and like decided not to air it in order to like defend his reputation as a man of the cloth?
I don't think we ever did that. No,
it's so funny, and I still haven't. I'm never deleting it. But we were like, I think we'd be doing him a disservice if we put.
And in all fairness, like he gave me a heads up, and I don't think, honestly, I don't know if I would have even thought twice about it if he hadn't said anything to me. But he was like, I just want to let you know I did this really, really on the fly, and I don't even quite remember what I said, but I think there might have been one or two things that wasn't totally appropriate. And I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, I might be right. And then I let you listen to it, and you're like, no, this is great. Let's air it. And then you and I, like, we got to the end of the episode, and we were like, you know what? Let's not.
The thing was, it wasn't that Greg Dutcher said anything offensive. It was that the joke, the nature of the joke being, I can't believe that character said something.
Right.
It's always a dangerous, a iffy thing a tightrope to walk.
Yes.
Because if you don't say things that are shocking, the joke dies. It's not there anymore.
Right.
But if you go too far, people lose sight of the character and might think that you're saying these things.
Exactly.
And it was like an anti-Christmas tirade, and it was, oh my gosh, it was funny. I think it was entirely in good taste, but I thought to myself, if I was unsure as a pastor about putting this out, and I said that to someone, what I really would want was for them to confirm for me, no, don't put this out.
Yeah.
And so just be on the safe side.
Right. But that is a treat for us. And, I have a feeling that, Zach, there are going to be some more great things that we are going to be doing in this 2019 season. One of those things is I really think that I want to go ahead and get a Patreon thing going on and do some extra content and do some giveaways and things like that. Because I, my sound equipment went up here. And, that happens. Equipment goes up and, I laid out some heavy cash to replace it, which I am happy to do because I love it, but it would be nice to kind of alleviate some of those costs. So I think 2019, maybe, early 2020, our listeners can expect a Patreon page. We're not going to do anything different than what we've been doing in terms of what we release. But maybe adding a little extra for those who are interested in helping fund us a little bit. So,
in other words, you'll get to hear that Greg Dutcher, James King thing.
I think I might. Yes, I think that would be the arena to release that bad boy.
And I guess I will stop making fun of Patreon then. At that point.
Well, unless you have another venue that we could go through.
No. And honestly, that's the only reason I can ever think of for a podcast to do a Patreon page. Mm-hmm. I never get it when people are like, "Oh, the expenses." It's like, once you're up and running, dude, if you're on Podbean, the expense is like $4 a month,
right,
or something. Now I've never asked. I assume you're getting something from our other sponsor that's sponsored every single episode up until recently, right?
Well, see, so what happened with those was I actually had made a deal with him so that we could run some big promotions.
Yeah. I'm teasing. I'm just teasing is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some other much bigger podcasts that have similar deals. And really, honestly, at the end of the day, all of these things in this little world of ours are run on a shoestring and our labors of love.
Yep.
But man, sound equipment, if you want it to sound good, that's a big cha-ching. So
yeah. And again, we're not looking to make, we're not looking to make any, kinds of crazy money off this or anything like that. It's just, again, like you said, sound equipment, computers getting up there in age. This is the original one that I had, with the recordings, and it's been great and holding up so far. But, it's kind of like the sound equipment. When it goes, you don't want to be sitting there like, oh man, what am I going to do for the next, month or so?
Now, I don't think we can expect the listeners to buy you a new computer.
Oh, no. But again, those things. Come on, guys. Hey, you know what?
Chops. I don't know why.
We might have contacts out there that we are unaware of and untapped. But I mean, that's the stuff that the Patreon does. You put it out there and it's like, it helps defray the cost of a lot of this stuff, So, I mean, even if, let's say over the course of the next year, you make $100, well, that's $100 less that I have to put down on a computer if this goes up. You know what I mean? So,
let me suggest a better idea.
What's that?
Let me suggest a different idea.
All right.
To come in and suggest my idea is better is arrogant. I have had great luck with a different podcast. And now that podcast, granted, came out of as a wing of a publishing company conglomerate, but in selling books, in which rather than frankly, when I think about it, great pressure for someone who's a monthly subscriber to a Patreon to provide them more and more extra content so they'll keep on putting in to try and get a larger number of people to do a one-time purchase. It might be doable, and I could see these go to 11 collection of comedy pieces, thought pieces, that sort of thing. I could certainly put it together. It's easy to do these days. Little paperback and ebook situation, and maybe we could think about going that route either instead of or along with a Patreon. And now that we've got this cult, group that we've started on Facebook, we have a way to kind of put our fingers out there on the pulse and say, it's clear to me that the Twitter surveys are not the answer.
Yes.
We got far more response in 5 minutes of having that group, that question, than in a week of having this Twitter survey.
Oh, man. Too funny. Too true as well. Yeah, definitely. So clearly these are the buddings of some ideas that we have. Zach, you and I can flesh them out later, instead of spending the next 20 minutes talking about them online.
Oh, I like to do this sort of thing. The last 15 minutes of me and Ted and my last podcast was just us deciding where to go to dinner.
Nice.
We forgot we were podcasting. You get to sit in on it.
That's awesome. You are part of the planning process, people. Maybe that's something. Yeah, we'll throw that up as a new discussion once we get on. So
I'm on here already right now, man.
Awesome. Multitasking,
minute by minute.
Dude, multitasking.
I really like our group, and I put up 3 rules.
Yes.
I did not confer with you about the rules. Are you in agreement? Do you concur?
I love those rules.
The first one is karate for defense only.
Yep.
The second one is you do not talk about Fight Club. Mm-hmm. And the third is be excellent to each other.
Yes. Yes.
And then we kind of I don't think we need more. I feel like These Go to 11 is not going to be a magnet for the types of like heavy-handed drama junkies that go to some of these other groups.
Yes. Yep, I agree, and the group thus far has proven that, and so let's keep it up, gang. Let's keep being excellent to one another.
And what's your favorite thing about an online, not even necessarily a Facebook group? Let me just tell you, my history with this stuff goes all the way back into the early 90s, like 1990. Mm-hmm. We bought a 2400 baud modem. And I had a friend give me a floppy disk with Telex on it. I think that was the name of it, right? The software that did the dialing and brought up the ANSI graphics. I would call into the Chocolate Malt and the Duck House BBS, and one called the Happy Hooker, which sounds like it's bad, but it was actually just a guy who owned a towing business and was clever about how he named his thing. And you'd go on and you'd discuss things. And you'd download games, and you'd play online games, cribbage and stuff. And ever since I got a taste of that, I have loved the idea of just being worlds away from people and yet having this continual conversation. And I got into Prodigy and AOL and then, the Usenet type stuff.
Yep.
All along, I've had a lot of good experience. I've had a lot of really crappy experiences.
Yep.
What do you like the best about this kind of stuff?
I'm with you. I like the fact that I can be sitting here in Maryland and I can be talking with someone or chatting with someone halfway across the world who's going through different experiences than I am and can speak to issues that are brought up, but give me a different perspective than the one I currently have. And so that connectivity that it brings, I think, is great. That diversity of thought, I love. Contrary to what people may think, I actually know that I'm not right all the time, and so I love it when people are able to come up and challenge my view of thinking and give me something more to chew on and something more to think about than I initially have. Another thing that I really like about it is I in no way have in talking with you and Greg before have suffered the level of insomnia that you guys have, but there have been spats of nights where I've gone through just restlessness, not being able to sleep, being able to get up and just chat with someone, to me was great. And so, just again, that connectivity, that ability to correspond with someone who has a different thought and opinion than I had, or a different perspective in life than I had. Sometimes, like you said, it was while you're playing a game, just kind of a meaningless game. And being able to connect and chat that way, and other times it was in a not so great way, as you've also brought up. But yeah, I love the general exchange of thoughts and ideas in a courteous way. Being able to express myself, in a way where people are, hopefully taking the things that I say and filtering it through, their own ideas and just adding or causing them to think. So that's really what I enjoy most about it. I love talking with people. I love discussing issues and topics with people, obviously doing this podcast. And so this is just, to me, another way in which to connect and do that. What is something that you really gravitate toward with this?
Well, let me tell you, my favorite experiences with this sort of a community have been, first of all, before Facebook. Mm-hmm. Years ago, and probably 2-3 years after I got to this church, mm-hmm. On our website, we hadn't had a website. I made this really Web 1.0, looking website with blue underline hyperlinks and everything. And our youth pastor at the time created a forum on it. There was that you could just download these forum things, upload them to your website, tweak them, and until they were infiltrated by spammers and spam bots. You'd have a great time. And so we had, at the time, about 16 youth group kids, and then we had about 8 or so adults that were on these things regularly. Anybody could get on it, but it was mostly the youth, and it was under the youth group heading of the website. And it was before Facebook, so this was kind of their way to interact with their friends online. Yeah. And the beautiful thing was then, as they're talking about like stuff they're struggling with, instead of just like their friends on their Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, wherever they are, Snapchat, saying, "Oh yeah, that sucks, and you should do this and really get back at that person," or whatever. There are all these kind of godly mentors around them.
Yes,
and there are these other Christians who are there to support them. And then we're also just being goofy and stupid and telling jokes, and we have all these inside jokes, and we have it was really cool. Yeah. And it honestly died when at a church this size you have surges of age groups. Yep. And all those kids graduated. One of them's a state cop now, one of them's an engineer. I just did his wedding. They're all grown up now. And behind them, there were 2 or 3 years of really no youth group. Yeah. After a very big one. Well, for us, a fairly big one. Right. And we'd have 20, 25 kids in our little youth room. It was a great size. And then there was nobody. And by the time we had another group kind of age into the youth group, MySpace had started to wane already. Facebook was big, and there was no point in trying to make our little crappy website the hub. Yeah. So that was one of my favorites. And I do love there's one called Baptist Board I go on sometimes. That's been around forever. And I do love some of the groups I'm on. I've cut it way back. A lot of them get weirdly toxic after a while. There's a tendency toward that, I think. But I love the CHS Cigar Club. I've been in that for a decade. I think that one's a secret group now because, it's tobacco related and Facebook can't bear it. Right. I was on a number of them that I liked for a while. I'm not going to name them because I'm going to say over time they just stopped really doing anything for me, and people would get mad, and there were these weird like admin power struggles and stuff. And I mean, if you work in a church, you work at a school, you don't want your spare time to be filled up with that kind of garbage. Right. So absolutely. I've ducked out. Tell me what, with or without naming the individual group or forum, what has been your, first of all, before this group, what was your favorite? What was the best? And then what has been your worst experience with?
My absolute favorite was, and I'll go, not quite far as back as you, but I'll still go back some 18, 19 years. It was, I was a senior in high school, getting ready to go into college, and I had gotten involved in this online group for martial artists. And it was a great conversation. The people who were in there were genuinely, fascinated with the different styles people had studied, giving as much as you can, giving online thoughts and comments to, teaching and guiding students, as well as learning and different styles that were good to check out. And, so for me, that was a really great community and group that I was involved with. Unfortunately, it, like you said, it had started getting more kind of toxic, and got hyper political. And so that's the point where I was just like, I'm kind of here to talk about martial arts. If I want to talk about politics, I'll join another group. That was, there were two. That was one. The other one that I just kind of lost track with over the course of time was a rock climbing group. And again, it was the same type of thing. It was just small group, and so getting on there, talking to people about really good climbs in the area and places to go, and different things to check out and look at for climbing techniques and for equipment. So those were two that I just really loved because the community was just so great and so involved and helpful, and was about those particular things. At least initially. And so to me, that was really great. One that I really, I never really got involved with. And I'm glad that I didn't. And I'll, just kind of hold back. It was a theological group that I was, on, and I never got too involved with the group, and part of that was just because at the time that I was in with the group, I had a lot of other things going on.
What could it be?
Yeah,
what could it be?
What are you talking about? But it, just slowly over time, and admittedly, I've said this, admittedly, I didn't pay too much attention to the rules because I enjoy thought-provoking conversations. I enjoy different views and perspectives on what, as long as nobody's being heretical, but what people their different views on certain doctrines of Scripture, and I enjoy that, and I enjoy seeing where they're getting their evidences from and pulling from, and so I really just wasn't thinking, and I really didn't pay too much attention to the rules. But I started when I was getting involved, started hitting on some hot button things for them, and honestly, it was not necessarily intentional, but it was it was just kind of viewed as aggressive and oh, you're breaking the rules of our sanctum, and it was kind of like, okay, well, it's time to go. So
I thought you were going to say you started hitting on some hot babes.
No, some hot topics, hot button topics for him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, okay, I mean, to as much as I could stay in here until they kick me out and just be, mean and nasty. But, I'll leave. There's no point. You really don't want me here. I really don't want to be here. So I'll leave.
Yeah. Now let me share a few more experiences.
Mm-hmm.
One is, I think, example of the best and the worst together.
Mm-hmm.
And it started out amazing. I miss it to this day because it's gone, but it flamed out like a dumpster fire and burned itself down. And that was IMDb. I had a going way, way, way back. I had an account on there in 1996 on those forums, and are you like somewhere where someone else is talking a lot?
Yeah, my wife's in another room on the phone. So. Oh,
okay. If you don't want her conversation on the record, we may want to shut a door or something, because I can hear every word she says. I was so proud of my username.
Yep.
I changed it at one point to Crindy Minfar. Crindy being the name that Job on Arrested Development suggests his wife Amy Poehler is named, and then Minfar being the last name that. Oh my gosh, dude! Seriously, is there a way to?
The door is actually shut.
How offended would she be if you suggest she go another room or two away?
She actually is.
But it may be that I sometimes hear things differently when I'm talking to you than they sound on the recording.
Yeah,
So
I'll go back and listen to the recording and see what happens. I've got to turn my track down a little bit anyway, so.
Okay. So Minfar is just the last name that Norm Macdonald guesses his crush is. He can't remember.
Yep.
It turns out to be Kilmartin. And I had about 10 people over the years private message me and say, I tried to get the name Crindy Minfar, and you had it. How obscure a thing is that? But it was so fun because it was where I immediately went to discuss an episode of TV right when I watched it.
Yep.
Where I immediately went to discuss a movie, and people would have all sorts of fun insight, jokes, trivia. It was such a wonderful community. And the reason it fell apart is because a very small group of trolls dedicated their very lives to it, saying, well, okay, we're just going to basically spend our time. I think it might have even started in the Cobra Kai one with these guys with the Daniels, the real bully kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Spread from there. But it was no fun anymore because anywhere you went, these guys had 9 or 10 different accounts, and it just stopped being fun. So it was the best and it was the worst. Now I go to Reddit to talk about movies and TV shows, and it's almost as good, but not quite.
Nice.
Not quite. When it comes to bad stories, bad experiences, one would be Puritan Board. I almost didn't name them, but I mean, you got to name them because it's part and parcel of what was bad about it.
Right.
It was my first experience with a forum where there were a ton of rules and a sort of system of like demerits and penalties and like doing penance that would put to shame a 19th century Jesuit boys' school. Yeah, and which is ironic for these very Protestant people. And the third or fourth time, I got a 3-day suspension for breaking one of their 97,000 rules. Yeah, I was like, I think I'm done here. I think I probably still have an account, but I don't ever go on there. It was horrible. The other one was. Oh, good grief. WillWheaton.net. For a while, he had a forum going. Oh, nice. And I had a friend who was really like, get in on this. It's so funny and it's so fun. And I got into a discussion with somebody, and I think we were talking about creation and evolution, and I was in the vast minority on that one. And it got to, I don't know, I was too uppity or something, and Will Wheaton himself, the only guy from Stand By Me who didn't get really famous, came in and exercised his authority with a big graphic that said mod voice. And he said, this is quite enough of this. And if you keep on these lines, you will be banned and barred from my website. And I was like, no one cares. Right. There was Ponyboy on The Outsiders. There was whoever you were on Stand By Me. And if this is the only way you can salve the wound of not getting famous, go nuts. I know the Comic-Con guys are all obsessed with him for whatever reason. So those were the ones that I think were bad, and it just highlights, I think, the opposite of that. What is so good about having a good community? And when you said, early on, before there were a bazillion of everything, and B, this one specific interest that holds everyone has in common, and then you also can discuss other random things around it. Right. That was the sweet spot for me. That was where it was just very, very. It was a community, and it was fun, and it was encouraging, and it was fun. It was uplifting. Yeah. The more glut and the more super saturated the sort of cyber market of ideas gets, the less use I have for most of this stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I was recently thinking about this idea of the community and all that. And one of the thoughts that came to my mind when I was thinking on this, and I was thinking back to, again, that feeling of, hey, we're in this as a community. We're trying to do this together. I thought of
two experiences that I had, and again, not specifically discussion board posts, but community related. And one of them, early on, several years ago, when I first got the Call of Duty Black Ops video game, and I started getting into online gaming again. I remember that there were certain groups that I would get into, and it was a really great, fun sense of gaming where, even if I sat there and I took someone out, there wasn't, this 10-year-old on the other line cussing me out over it. It was like, this older guy or soundingly older guy, like, hey man, that was a really great shot, and I just took him out, and so I remember being in several of them like that, where it was like, man, this is fun. This is what gaming should be, where you're going in and you're having fun with someone you don't even know, and you can compliment each other and you can have a good time and keep it fun and keep it decent, And of course, with that, there were also, the horrible times where it's like, I'm a casual gamer at this point, and so get on every once in a while. And so, no, I can't really help the team out in their stats, and they get all annoyed and ticked off, and words start flying. And, I think that's the thing with any community that you get into. The people who are in there responding and understanding that we are a community. We're doing this for fun. We're doing this to, enjoy company. And not taking themselves so seriously, but just having a good time in the process. And the other one that's super great, and I've always loved. I talked about the rock climbing discussion group I was in, but the rock climbing community in general is I've known it to be just a great group of people. In general. And so, I used to climb a lot years ago, and I've just gotten back into it. And I was in the gym one day, and I had several people like just coming over and like, hey man, how's it going? It's like, hey, that looks really cool. If you try this will help you out. And it's just a community that comes together and wants to see each other improve and get better. And to me, that's what these online discussions should be is, this is a fun opportunity. Let's go ahead and, come together and, throw out ideas, get to know one another's stories through, these questions that we throw up, these discussions that we throw up, and, see how we can improve and enrich each other's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on board with all that. Can I suggest some kind of guidelines, I think, that kind of sum up what I think is a good group? Yeah. And then what I think more like what makes a bad group, and then the opposite makes the good group.
Yeah, the opposite makes a good group. Yeah.
One is the two extremes of either total jungle chaos, like laissez-faire, anything can be written, which is kind of the idea originally behind Reddit. I had an experience with this where I had a website I created in probably 2005, 2006, right when Young Restless Reformed was getting big. Yep. And it was called thecalvinati.com. And it was intended to be kind of an aggregator of all of these new Calvinist things. And it took a lot of time. I had churches by region. I had you can still look at it if you go on pastorzach.com/Calvinati, I think is how you do it. But it had, like seminaries and podcasts and blogs and everything. And I started a forum, and I had 6 or 7 people who were volunteer moderators. Mm-hmm. And because of what was going on in that particular period of time with bots and stuff, it quickly got overrun with spam. Mm-hmm. Like rough stuff, man. Like if you look at blog post comments from this period too, if they weren't heavily policed, like trying to get people into pornographic websites and selling the little blue pills and everything. Right. So eventually they kind of all just said, sorry, we quit. And I was like, well, I can't do it all by myself, so I just had to take the thing down. There has to be someone kind of standing there saying, I'm going to make sure this place doesn't become an awful place to be. Yeah. The other extreme is a bazillion rules. Yeah. More than a couple rules, I think. Yeah. One that you and I talked about when I put together the Baptist Calvinist Iconophiles thing. Yep. Was like the pictures of the Lord, second commandment violation idea that shows up so often. And I always say, all right, I'm going to respect it. If I join the group, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to argue about it.
Right.
But I always think like, if you're not really going to be led into sin by seeing a picture, then what's the point of banning that particular activity? Right. There's a lot of these groups lately I've been joining where they power them down on Sunday.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to make sure that you aren't on Facebook on the Lord's Day because we decide how you keep your day of rest.
Right.
I can't get my mind. Some of them just say we're not going to moderate. We're not going to approve new posts. I get that. That's your business.
Right.
But when they're like, shaming you for being on it, that's absurd. Yeah. I hate it when there's condescension. Yeah. Like talking to me like you're a school teacher and I'm a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
No, we're both adults here. Don't be like that. And then I really hate it when there's threats. And that was the whole. I mean, granted, I know that Spurgeon loved Puritans, and I love Puritan Cemetery and Grand Cemetery. I said, Boyd was right,
dude. It's a new movie. Forget Pet Cemetery. We got Puritan Cemetery, baby. Jonathan Edwards gonna come and haunt your butt.
I love the seminary in Grand Rapids. But we're talking about people who, like, if you wore an extra snazzy shirt on Christmas, they put you in the stocks because you might have been, it was December 25th, so what if you're being a papist? And, like, when my Baptist forebearers went into a town and, like, prayed with someone in their house, they whipped Obadiah Holmes, publicly. They laid his back open. So it doesn't surprise me that they're like, if you break our rules, then we're going to do something bad.
Right.
But that is just such an awful way to be, just.
Yeah.
I love it when you're on websites lately and the only option I was one of those who was like, where's the dislike button? Where's the angry button? Where's all and now that it's here, I'm like, no. I miss when it was just like.
Yeah.
If I don't like it, I won't click anything.
Yeah.
Or just a thanks button, or on some of those, I think on Baptist Board it's just like an amen button, and like on sermon audio, I think there's just like the amen. If you liked the sermon, click amen. If you didn't, shut up.
Right.
So that kind of thing, I really like that kind of a vibe.
Yeah.
It's just like this whole thing is escapism, and I'm going to make a place to escape to, not a place that you're longing to escape from.
Right.
Do you have any other thoughts to add to that? What's the perfect recipe for our group here?
Yeah, I think really, that third rule sums up, be excellent to one another, just, somebody says something you don't agree with, that, that's cool. And I think you can choose your words carefully to come across as sounding nicer than just saying, well, I think that's stupid and, you're not a Christian for posting that. I mean, it's interesting because I have to do, I'm in the middle of taking master's courses and I have to do discussion board posts. I have people who are constantly posting things that I don't agree with. And instead of like going in blasting them, I just very politely say, oh man, that's interesting. Have you thought about this? There's nothing threatening about that, and just asking them, have you thought about this perspective? Have you thought about this point of view? And if they're like, oh yeah, I thought about it, but I don't really, okay, that's cool. We've talked about this before. I'm really coming to the point more and more, not so much when I was younger, but more and more where I don't have to get the last word in on something. And I would rather, let a person think that, they one-upped me on an argument or a conversation than get into something, and to me, that's being excellent, because I can't see the person. I know my shortcomings and failings when I try to type something out, and I'm not as good typing something out or writing something out as I am verbally expressing myself to someone. And so I know those shortcomings and failings. And so I want to give someone the benefit of the doubt that, maybe that, they're coming across in a way that I don't like, but maybe it's because they just don't quite know how to express themselves, typing these things out, or maybe they are like that, but either way, I can let things go and it's not the end of the world. I'm not losing my man card because I'm like, I don't need to engage in that. But I think one of the things that I've noticed in this group is and the These Go to 11 community, even before this group, is I think people come and listen to us because they're looking for that measure of being gracious to one another. You know, that we have people who have different thoughts and ideas, and they genuinely want to know how to interact with those people and be gracious to them.
Yeah, and to your penultimate point there, I think like people are really worried now about being on the right side of history. Maybe on a macro level, but on a micro level, are you on the right side of history in this individual group?
Right.
Whether it's a cigar aficionado group or it could be. Lately, there's a lot of discussion of the SBC deep state, which I think has got to be our next topic probably.
Yep.
Because it's everywhere,
Right.
and just like robots are everywhere. But yeah, it's always difficult to know how you're going to be taken when there's no context of tone, when there's no facial expressions.
Right.
So you got to err on the side of, is there a reasonable way that someone's going to assume I'm being a jerkwad here? And if so, let me rephrase.
Right.
And if people aren't willing to do that self-policing, no moderator is going to make it work, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, I think that sums it up nicely for us.
Nice.
So.
All right, to get to the group, you go to Facebook, you go to These Go to 11 on our page, which you should already be liking. Am I right?
That's right.
You click on groups, which is like the second or third thing down. And I hope you don't mind, I also made my Iconophiles group a sub thing of These Go to 11 because it came out of one of our episodes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But the first group you'll see just says These Go to 11 Discussion Group. Click that, click join, and then very quickly we will click approve, and then you're in. And once you're in for life.
That's right. We got you.
Like Pony Boy and the other guy. What was his name on Stand By Me?
I don't remember. Dude, it's been years since I've seen that. There are several movies that I remember watching when I was younger, too young to actually appreciate them, and I need to go back and rewatch them to see if I actually appreciate them or I was right when I was younger and just didn't appreciate them. So
it's not great. I tell you what, I saw that guy as he tried to be a villain on Arrow or The Flash. I don't remember which one. One of those DC things. And I was so embarrassed for him. I crawled, averting my eyes over to the TV and unplugged it. And I was like, all right, we shan't think about or talk about this again.
He who shall not be named.
If I sound bitter, I'm not. I'm surprised I could remember the guy's name, but I couldn't believe that day when he came in with his own graphic, and I was imagining him designing it. Is this mod voice graphic stony enough looking? Is it going to inspire fear in my forum that the mod is here?
I shall control my minions with my mod voice.
Right. We're not controlling anybody. Come down to These Go to 11 and tell us what you want. This can become a natural way for people to suggest topics, and if we do or don't take the suggestion, they can discuss it. And then when and if we do discuss it, we've got a bunch of people said this stuff already. It gives us material.
That's right.
And that's really cool. And then B, it also becomes a great way for people to say, this is what I want to hear the Reverend James King say on the strafing. I want him to address the SBC deep state, for example. That'd be a good one.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're going to sign off in just a second, but real quick, you mentioned, Zach, joining the discussion board. Again, I want to just let people know we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are actually on Instagram, and you can find us on Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, and we would love for you to leave us a review, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, all those things. Leave us a review. And what the reviews do, again, is they just allow people to find us faster. It's still kind of impressive that when you type in These Go to 11, once you get through the, this is Spinal Tap stuff, we're, right there, right at the top. So that's cool. Let's keep on keeping on with that.
We haven't read any listener reviews in a while. We should do that.
Let us make that our goal for the next podcast that we do. Pull out some listener reviews and see if we can make that happen. You know what else we should do is we should welcome new people who sign up and come on, because I notice like Facebook, we're getting, some follows and likes. And so I think we should do that as well, as, welcome new people into the group.
All right. Yeah, the initial one will be quite an undertaking, but then after that, keeping up probably won't be that hard.
We'll just do a general, welcome everyone. So yeah, that's right. We'll just welcome everyone, and then starting after that, we'll mention them by name.
I'm talking to you, Jared, and everyone else.
Nice. Oh man, dude, this has been good and fun, and I can't wait to see what we have coming up for the future. We will talk some more about, different ideas that we have about possibly composing a book of short, these go to 11 clips that we've done, and or something else. So we'll see what the future holds for us. But in the meantime, nice. Zach, we just rocked the Casbah.
These go to 11.